Welcome to Astro Odyssey. Explore the universe. For 50 years, the moon was a memory, a silver trophy left in the rearview mirror of the 20th century. We went there to prove we could. We left to focus on the world we already knew. But as of January 2026, the silence on the lunar surface is about to be broken. This isn't a revisit, it's an occupation. We are currently standing at the 2026 window, a tipping point where space is no longer a destination, but a neighborhood. In just a few weeks, the Artemis II mission will carry 4 humans around the moon, farther than any human has traveled in history. But look closer at the manifest. They aren't just bringing cameras, they're bringing blueprints. For the first time, we aren't just visiting, we're moving in. The year 2026 is our crossroads. At Launchpad 39B, the Space Launch System, the most powerful rocket ever built, is being prepped for a February window. Onboard Commander Reed Wiseman, Pilot Victor Glover, Mission Specialist Christina Koch, Canada's Jeremy Hansen, are preparing to do more than just orbit. They are the stress test for a new era. They're testing the Orion life support systems against deep space radiation and proving that our modern tech can handle the 240,000-mile void. But while NASA builds the highway, private industry is building the trucks. SpaceX's Starship is no longer a prototype. It is the designated human landing system. By June of this year, the first ship-to-ship propellant transfer in orbit is scheduled, the holy grail of deep space travel. If we can gas up in orbit, we can go anywhere. The secret to a permanent colony isn't on the surface, it's in the sky. Meet the Lunar Gateway. Think of it as the ultimate orbital truck stop. Unlike the International Space Station, which hugs, the Earth's gateway will live in a permanent halo orbit around the moon. In 2026, the construction of its core elements, the power and propulsion element PPE, and the habitation and logistics outpost Halo is reaching its final stages. Why? Build a house in orbit. Because the moon's gravity is a trap. If you land every time, you waste fuel. But if you dock at the gateway, you have a staging ground for the South Pole, the lunar Gold Coast. This is where the ice is. It's where the water is. And where there is water, there is oxygen, fuel, and the future of the human race. The mission profile for the next 3 years is laser focused on one spot, the lunar South Pole. In the permanently shadowed regions of these craters, temperatures haven't changed in billions of years. It is a deep freeze for water ice by the end of this decade. The foundational surface habitat will be more than a drawing, it will be a pressurized home. But before we can put boots in the dust in 2027, the 2026 Artemis II crew must prove we can survive the journey. We are leaving the cradle. And as the Orion capsule rolls out to the pad this month, one thing is certain: Earth is about to become a two-world civilization. The year 2026 is our crossroads. At Launchpad 39B, the Space Launch System, the most powerful rocket ever built, is being prepped for a February window. Onboard Commander Reed Wiseman, Pilot Victor Glover, Mission Specialist Christina Koch, Canada's Jeremy Hansen, are preparing to do more than just orbit. They are the stress test for a new era. They're testing the Orion life support systems against deep space radiation and proving that our modern tech can handle the 240,000-mile void. But while NASA builds the highway, private industry is building the trucks. SpaceX's Starship is no longer a prototype. It is the designated human landing system. By June of this year, the first ship-to-ship propellant transfer in orbit is scheduled, the holy grail of deep space travel. If we can gas up in orbit, we can go anywhere. The secret to a permanent colony isn't on the surface, it's in the sky. Meet the Lunar Gateway. Think of it as the ultimate orbital truck stop. Unlike the International Space Station, which hugs, the Earth's gateway will live in a permanent halo orbit around the Moon. In 2026, the construction of its core elements, the power and propulsion element PPE, and the habitation and logistics outpost Halo is reaching its final stages. Why? Build a house in orbit. Because the Moon's gravity is a trap. If you land every time, you waste fuel. But if you dock at the gateway, you have a staging ground for the South Pole, the lunar Gold Coast. This is where the ice is. It's where the water is. And where? There is water, there is oxygen, fuel, and the future of the human race. The mission profile for the next 3 years is laser-focused on one spot, the lunar South Pole. In the permanently shadowed regions of these craters, temperatures haven't changed in billions of years. It is a deep freeze for water ice. By the end of this decade, the foundational surface habitat will be more than a drawing. It will be a pressurized home. But before we can put boots in the dust in 2027, the 2026 Artemis II crew must prove we can survive the journey. We are leaving the cradle. And as the Orion capsule rolls out to the pad this month, one thing is certain: Earth is about to become a two-world civilization. As we move into the first major phase of our expansion, we look toward the year 2026, a date that will be etched into history as the moment humanity truly returned to deep space. While the Apollo missions were brief sprints, the Artemis program is a marathon designed for permanence. The spearhead of this movement is Artemis II, the first crewed mission to the Moon in over half a century. Unlike the landings of the 1960s, this mission is a rigorous systems test. For astronauts Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen will board the Orion spacecraft atop the massive Space Launch System rocket. Their 10-day journey won't touch the lunar surface, but it will take them further than any human has ever traveled, swinging around the lunar far side to prove that our modern life support, navigation, and shielding can protect us from the brutal radiation of the deep space void. This is the ultimate proof of concept that clears the path for the real game changer. The Lunar Gateway. The Lunar Gateway is not just another space station. It is the first true deep space outpost, modular sanctuary orbiting 240,000 miles from Earth. To understand why we are building it, you have to look at its unique path, the near rectilinear halo orbit, or NRHO. This is a highly eccentric 7-day loop that perfectly balances the gravity of the Earth and the Moon. At its closest point, the Gateway skims just 3,000 kilometers above the lunar North Pole, providing a quick elevator ride to the surface. At its furthest, it swings 70,000 kilometers out over the South Pole. This orbit is a masterstroke of engineering, because it is nearly stable, requiring almost no fuel to stay in place for decades. More importantly, it keeps the station in constant, unobstructed view of Earth, ensuring that the astronauts are never out of contact. Luxury the Apollo crews never had. Think of the Gateway as the first gas station in deep space. In the 20th century, we had to carry every drop of fuel from Earth's surface, fighting our planet's massive gravity every step of the way. The Gateway changes the math of the solar system. By docking at this orbital hub, spacecraft can refuel, switch modules, and prepare for the next leg of the journey without landing on the Moon first. It serves as a staging ground where the Orion capsule from Earth meets the human landing system SpaceX's massive Starship. This decoupling of the journey Earth to orbit, orbit to Moonies, the multi-planetary blueprint in action. It allows us to build larger, more efficient ships that never have to face the atmospheric drag of Earth, turning the Moon from a destination into a launching pad for the rest of the solar system. But but a gas station needs a source of fuel. That brings us to the most valuable real estate in the solar system, the lunar South Pole. In 2026, the race is on to explore the permanently shadowed regions, or PSRs. These are craters where the sun hasn't shone for billions of years, creating deep freeze traps where temperatures plunge to -400 degrees Fahrenheit. Inside these dark pits, we have found what we've been looking for: water ice. This ice is more than just a drink for thirsty astronauts. It is the oil of the space age. Through electrolysis, we can split that water into liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen, the same chemical components used for rocket fuel. Mining the South Pole means we can create fuel on the moon, refilling our tanks at the gateway and slashing the cost of space travel by 90%. As we look at the 2026 horizon, the lunar surface is transforming into a hive of robotic activity. Rovers and hoppers are already scouting for the best mining sites near the Shackleton crater, where the peaks of eternal light provide constant solar power right next to the craters of eternal darkness where the ice lives. This synergy of light and dark is why the South Pole is the foundation of our second Genesis. We are no longer just looking at the moon through telescopes. We are mapping its resources, building its ports, and preparing to live off the land. The Artemis II mission is the handshake, the gateway is the house, and the lunar ice is the engine that will eventually carry us toward the red horizon of Mars. If we're being honest, the journey to Mars doesn't actually start on a launch pad. It starts in the silence of low Earth orbit. See, for decades, we've been stuck in a weight trap. We could only go as far as the fuel we could carry from. The ground would take us. But as we sit here in 2026, that math is finally changing. Look at the vehicle on your screen. This is Starship version 3. It's a monster. It's taller than the Great Pyramid, and it's powered by the Raptor 3N. Engine so advanced it looks like it was grown in a lab rather than built in a factory. But the real magic trick isn't the size, it's the refill. Imagine a car that can't reach its destination because the gas tank is too small. Now, imagine a fleet of tankers meeting that car on the highway to top it off while it's moving at 17,000 miles per hour. That is orbital refueling. In 2026, SpaceX is turning Earth's orbit into the solar system's first gas station. By docking 2 ships in the void, we reset the clock. We fill the tanks. And suddenly, for the first time in human history, we have a ship with enough legs to carry 100 tons of cargo all the way to the Martian dust. Without this handshake in the dark, Mars is a dream. With it, it's a destination. Every 26 months, the universe gives us a hall pass. The planets align, the distance shrinks, and for a brief moment, the door to Mars swings open. This is the 2026 window. Now, there's been a lot of talk about when humans will actually step out onto that red dirt. And while Elon Musk has always been an optimist, the strategy in 2026 has taken a fascinating, more pragmatic turn. We aren't sending people yet, we're sending the help. The 2026 manifest is led by a crew that doesn't need to breathe. The Tesla Optimus robots. Think about the sheer guts of that plan. While we wait for the 2029 window to send humans, these humanoid scouts will be the ones doing the heavy lifting. Integrated with the latest AI, these robots are the advanced guard. They're the ones who will unload the heavy crates, roll out the solar arrays, start building the foundations of Mars Base Alpha. We're sending the workers to build the house before the family arrives. It's a silent, robotic prologue to the greatest story we've ever told. If you've ever wondered why we haven't stayed on the moon or gone to Mars yet, it usually comes down to one thing: groceries. Bringing everything you need from Earth is a losing game. To stay, you have to live off the land. And on Mars, the most precious land isn't the dirt, it's the air. Mars has an atmosphere, but it's a ghost of one, mostly carbon dioxide. But back in the early 2020s, a little device called MOXIE proved we could do something miraculous. It could strip the oxygen out of that CO2. In 2026, we're scaling that up. We're landing industrial-sized mechanical lungs. These machines don't just provide air for astronauts to breathe. They provide the liquid oxygen needed to ignite the engines for the trip home. We're literally teaching our machines to breathe. For us, filling up giant storage tanks with Martian-made oxygen, it means when those first pioneers finally land, their return ticket will already be waiting for them, manufactured right out of the thin Martian air. It's the ultimate act of self-sufficiency. But let's talk about the two things that actually keep a mission commander up at night. Mars is a beautiful world, but it's a radiation oven. Without a thick atmosphere, the sun's rays are lethal. To survive, we can't just live in plastic tents. We have to get creative. The 2026 cargo ships are carrying 3D printing tech that treats the Martian dirt the regolith-like liquid gold. Our robots will take that dirt, mix it with a binder, print bricks. They'll stack these bricks over our habitats, creating a meter-thick shield that makes the inside as safe as your living room back on Earth. And then there's the power. Solar is great until a dust storm blocks the sky for 3 months. That's why we're sending kilopower. These are tiny, modular nuclear reactors, no bigger than a trash can. They don't care about the weather. They don't care about the dark. They just hum along, providing constant, steady heat and light for a decade. By 2026, we aren't just sending a mission. We're planting an ecosystem. We're building a shield. We're catching the sun. And we're preparing to turn a dead world into a second home. The transition from a planetary species to a multi-planetary one is often romanticized as a triumphant march of technology. But as we cross the 40-minute mark of our journey, we must confront the most stubborn variable in the entire equation: the human body. Engineering a rocket is a matter of mathematics and metallurgy. But engineering a human to survive the void is a battle against 4 billion years of evolution. We are, at our core, biological machines fine-tuned for a very specific environment, a cradle of 1G gravity, a thick nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere, and a protective magnetic bubble. When we leave Earth for the Moon and Mars in 2026, we are essentially taking a deep-sea fish and asking it to live on a mountain peak. The conflict between our ambition and our biology is the greatest hurdle of the second Genesis. It is not enough to build a ship that can reach Mars. We must ensure that the creatures walking out of that ship are still recognizable as human. This is the silent war between the laws of physics and the fragility of flesh. The first and most invisible enemy we face is radiation. On Earth, we live under the protection of a massive planetary magnetosphere and a dense atmosphere that acts as a shield equivalent to 30 feet of solid lead. In deep space, that shield is gone the moment an astronaut leaves the Earth's protective embrace. They are bombarded by two types of lethal energy: solar particle events and galactic cosmic rays. Solar particles are predictable but violent. Bursts from our sun, but it is the galactic cosmic rays, shards of atoms traveling at nearly the speed of light from exploding stars across the galaxy that pose the true threat. These heavy ions act like microscopic cannonballs, tearing through the aluminum hull of a spacecraft and, more importantly, tearing through the double helix of human DNA. On the surface of Mars, an inhabitant is exposed to radiation levels roughly 700 times higher than those on the streets of New York or London. Without the meter-thick regolith shields we discussed in Phase 2, humans' lifetime limit for cancer-inducing radiation would be reached in a matter of months. Isn't just about the long-term risk of illness. It is about the immediate degradation of the central nervous system and the potential for space brain, a phenomenon where high-energy particles cause cognitive decline, memory loss, and a lack of focus during the very moments when an astronaut needs to be at their sharpest. Even if we solve the radiation crisis, we still have to contend with the weight of weightlessness. Gravity is the invisible architect of our bodies. From the moment of conception, every bone, every muscle, and even the shape of our hearts is dictated by Earth's 1G pull. On the Moon, gravity is a mere 17% of what we are used to. On Mars, it is 38%. To the first explorers, this feels like a superpower, the ability to leap over obstacles and carry massive loads with ease. But the body is a master of efficiency. If it doesn't need to support weight, it begins to discard its structure. In low gravity, the skeletal system undergoes a process of rapid demineralization. Bones become porous and brittle, leaking calcium into the bloodstream at an alarming rate, which in turn leads to the agonizing risk of kidney stones in a place where there is no hospital. The cardiovascular system, too, begins to fail. On Earth, the heart works hard to pump blood upward against gravity toward the brain. In the 38% gravity of Mars, the blood pools in the upper body. The heart, realizing it no longer has to fight, a heavy load actually begins to atrophy and shrink. It becomes a smaller, weaker pump. By the time an astronaut is ready to return to Earth's heavy gravity, after a 2-year stint on the red planet, their heart and bones may no longer be capable of sustaining life in a 1G environment. We are effectively tethering ourselves to our new homes. The longer we stay, the harder it becomes to ever come back. Beyond the physical toll lies the most profound challenge of all: the psychological abyss. NASA psychologists call it the Earth toe view phenomenon. For every human who has ever lived, the Earth has been an infinite, immovable foundation. Even the Apollo astronauts could look back and see their home as a bright blue marble hanging in the dark. But for the crew of a 2026 Mars mission, there will come a moment, roughly 3 months into the journey, when the Earth shrinks from a planet to a disk, then to a bright star, and finally to nothing more than a tiny blue dot, lost in the sea of black. This is a level of isolation that the human mind is not wired to comprehend. On Earth, help is a phone call or a flight away. On the Moon, help is 3 days away. On Mars, help is 9 months away. It can come at all. This total severance creates a unique form of existential dread. When you can no longer see your home planet, the psychological tether snaps. You are no longer an Earthling on a trip. You are a ghost in a vacuum. Stress of this isolation is compounded by the signal delay. At the furthest point in their orbits, it takes 20 minutes for a radio wave to travel from Mars to Earth, and another 20 minutes for the reply to return. There is no such thing as a real-time conversation. You cannot call your family to hear their voices in a moment of crisis. Every decision you make alone. This isolation is why the humanized design of our 2026 habitats is so vital. We aren't just building life support systems. We are building psychological anchors. The 2026 mission blueprint includes the first bioregenerative modules, small, pressurized greenhouses where astronauts can grow Earth plants. This isn't just for food or oxygen. It's for the smell of wet soil, the sight of green leaves, and the humidity of a living forest. These sensory inputs are the only things that can keep the Earth's out-of-view phenomenon from fracturing the mind. We are finding that the most important piece of tech on a Mars-bound Starship isn't the engine or the solar panels, it's the window. But even with windows, even with plants, we are asking humans to live in a state of hypervigilance. On Mars, a single hiss of escaping air or a flickering light isn't a maintenance issue. It's a death sentence. Living in a world that is actively trying to kill you every second of every day creates a baseline of cortisol and stress that can erode the strongest personality. As we look at the 2026 window, we have to ask ourselves what it means to be human. Are we ready to accept that the first Martians may be physically and mentally different from us within a single generation? The second Genesis is not just a migration of people. It is the beginning of a biological divergence. We are entering the era of the Homo sapiens, a version of humanity that has traded the safety of the cradle for the harsh, cold brilliance of the frontier. Physics may set the limits, but as we have shown time and again, biology and the human spirit has a way of pushing back. As we stand here in the dawn of 2026, Looking at the flickering telemetry of the Artemis missions and the soaring stainless steel arches of the Starship fleet, it is easy to get lost in the how, right? We focus on the thrust of the engines, the chemistry of the fuel, and the cold, hard math of orbital mechanics. But the why is what will define the next 30 years of our existence. To truly understand the 2026 window, we have to look past it, projecting our vision forward to the year 2050. Imagine a time-lapse of the Martian. Horizon a vista that has remained unchanged for 3 billion years. In the first few seconds, we see the arrival of the scout ships we've discussed. Tiny, silver needles landing in the red dust. Then the robots arrive, their mechanical limbs moving with tireless precision as they stack regolith and deploy the first solar farms. But then the pace changes. The silver needles are replaced by massive, heavy lift transporters. The small pressurized tents give way to permanent geodesic domes. The gray and red landscapes begin to glow with the internal light of human civilization. By 2050, the outpost is gone, replaced by a city of 1 million people, a bustling, thriving metropolis shielded from the radiation by the very ground it stands upon. This is not a dream. It is the scheduled destination of the path we are walking today. By 2050, children born on the Moon and Mars will represent a new branch on the tree of life. For them, the Earth will not be the world, but the old world, a beautiful, distant library of biological history. These new citizens will have grown up in lower gravity, their bodies taller and more slender, their perspectives shaped by the reality that life is something you must actively maintain every single day. On Mars, you do not take the air for granted. You do not take the water for granted. This shift in consciousness will be the greatest export of the space colonies. As we learn to recycle every drop of moisture and every molecule of carbon on Mars, we will inevitably bring those technologies back to Earth, healing the planet we left behind. This is the great irony of the second Genesis, by trying to live on a dead world, we will finally learn how to properly cherish a living one. The technology required to make Mars habitable is the exact same technology required to make Earth sustainable. It is vital, however, to address the most common criticism of this grand expansion. There are those who say we should fix Earth before we look to the stars, that we are abandoning our home. But the 2026 blueprint reveals the opposite truth. This isn't about abandonment, it is about insurance. Every successful species in the history of our planet has survived by expanding its range. To stay on one world is to remain vulnerable to the cosmic lottery, to the asteroids, the supervolcanoes, and the self-inflicted wounds of a closed system. By establishing a second and third home on the Moon and Mars, we are ensuring that the light of human consciousness will never be extinguished. We are backing up the hard drive of humanity. If a catastrophe were to strike the cradle, the story of music, art, science, and love would continue elsewhere. We are moving from a single point of failure civilization to a redundant, multi-planetary one. We are becoming life-tested. As the camera pulls back from the glowing lights of the 2050 Martian city, we see the Earth and the Moon hanging together. In the distance, a dual-world system that was once the entire universe to us. We realized that 2026 was the moment the door finally stayed open. The Artemis II astronauts, the SpaceX engineers, and the robotic scouts were the bridge builders. They were the ones who looked at the impossible and decided it was merely a series of engineering problems. They moved us from a species that looks up at the stars and wonders, to a species that looks down at the stars and remembers where we came from. We are no longer just inhabitants of a planet. We are the guardians of a spark of life that is finally beginning to spread across the dark. The silence of the solar system is over. The conversation has begun. So as we close this blueprint of our future, the question is no longer if we will go, but where you will go. The frontier is opening, and for the first time in history, the choice belongs to all of us. The moon offers the proximity of home. A 3-day journey back to the oceans and the forests, but a landscape of stark, monochromatic beauty. Mars offers the challenge of a true new world, a place of red sunsets and towering volcanoes, but a commitment that spans years and millions of miles. Both are calling. Both are being built as we speak. This is the most exciting time to be alive in the history of our species, because for the first time, the final frontier is a place you can actually visit. Where would you want to live, the silver peaks of the moon or the red plains of Mars? Let us know in the comments below. The second Genesis is here, and the seed is yours. Asterisk.